No deal. That was the players' response to the league's final offer before the 5 p.m. deadline on Tuesday. What does this mean going forward? How many games will be lost? Also, on this episode, we continue our series ranking the best relief pitching groups in the NL East this time around. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
Hey, this is Stacey Gotsoulias,
DC Lundberg,
Ryan Finkelstein,
Taylor Blake Ward,
host of Locked On Yankees,
Locked On Mariners,
Locked On Mets,
Locked On Angels,
and you're listening to Locked On Braves.
Locked On Braves,
Locked On Braves,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your favorite teams every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Check out my bio there to see where I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. Also cover prospects for Prospects 1500, cover the Birmingham Barons for Southside Sox, and I cover college baseball for College Baseball Nation. So plenty of baseball action going on, even with the lockout continuing over there on my Twitter account at shortstopball. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at lockedon_Braves so that you can be part of the show. Please send in any questions, requests, anything you have for the show. Send those in at lockedon_Braves on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast as well, and on YouTube. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. We'll continue to post episodes 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, until things start back up for Major League Baseball. But unfortunately, things won't be starting back up anytime soon, as there was no deal on Tuesday as the deadline was extended. The original deadline was February 28th to get a deal in place without missing any games. That was pushed back to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, as it looked like Monday night perhaps they were starting to make some real progress towards a deal. I think that was a bit misleading based on the way things unfolded Tuesday, and the owners made a final offer Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m. Eastern that really didn't move the needle at all, and the players quickly rejected that offer, as it looks like they were still far apart on some major issues. And looking at that right now, I'll start with the one thing they were pretty close on in my mind is the minimum salary, which is great news. The last offer from the owners was at $700,000, and the players, I believe, were at $725,000. So they're really close there, which is really good. That was one of the three big issues that the two sides were battling over. So I think that one can get done relatively easily. However, they are still far apart on the two other major issues. One of those being how the bonus pool is structured for those 0-1 service year players in that arbitration pool. They are still very far off in terms of the money that should be put into that pool, as well as the number of players that money should go to. The owners, or I believe their last offer was at $30 million to a much smaller group of players, and the union was at $85 million to a much larger group of players. So they're still very far apart on this. I will say, I mean, this is a brand new thought. It's a brand new part of the CBA. So, obviously they're still trying to figure that out. Regardless, I think this is a huge win for the players. And this is money given to young players that was never there before. And now it's just figuring out, what's the starting point for that. And clearly the players believe it should be much higher than what the owners believe it should be. So still trying to figure that out. There really hasn't been much movement either side to get close to the middle. And me just thinking as a fan here, I'm not a business person by any means, but but I think you get that to 50 billion, 60 billion. I think you got a deal, but are the owners, willing to do that. That's kind of where I thought all along. Again, kind of split the middle of where the players were to begin with and where the owners were to begin with. And I think we kind of meet that $50-60 million range, but still very far off from even getting to that point. And then the other one, which seems to be the biggest issue, and I still don't understand why. I've been asking for a month now for somebody to explain why this is such a huge issue for the players, but they're still very far apart on the CBT threshold. Um, and the owners, continue to not want to raise that. It was at 210 million. They've offered to raise it 220 million, which would be the biggest raise in any collective bargaining that they've had so far. But also, the league has made tons of money recently, so I understand why players and fans and everybody think it should be higher. It probably should be. So my only argument against this being a big point, and I'm not saying it's something that shouldn't be better and that they should have a better offer from the owners here, but this affects 5 teams, 5 or 6 teams that are really going to push that collective bargaining tax threshold. To me, it's not a huge deal breaker, but I get it from the player standpoint. Look, this CBT threshold, this is about getting the older player paid. It's about getting that 33-year-old, 34-year-old major league player paid and still getting them money. Again, it only really affects a handful of teams. So to me, it's not a huge issue. And I think you have to have it. Again, I'm not trying to side with the owners here at all, but I think you have to have it. And I think you have to have some sort of a hard cap because the one thing I will say that I agree with Rob Manfred on from his press conference that he held is that there is a huge payroll discrepancy issue in Major League Baseball. I think that is by far the most honest and true thing he said in his press conference because there is. You have teams like the Mets, like the Dodgers, who will run up a high payroll, a $200 million plus payroll, and then you have the Rays and the A's and Cleveland right now who will spend 50, 60, $70 million. That is a huge payroll discrepancy. And if you just continue to raise the tax thresholds, those teams at the top are just going to continue to spend and buy good players, and the teams at the bottom still aren't. That's why I was so much in favor of there being a floor more so than focusing on this threshold, this top, this cap, necessarily, essentially is what it is, a cap. I think they need to focus more on a floor to make some of these small market teams spin. But apparently the players didn't want to go that way. I think the league made an offer early on about that, but the players turned it down. I haven't really heard much about it since. But I think they should be pushing more for a floor. I don't. Yeah, I don't understand this being a big hang up for the players. Yes, it should be increased. It is getting increased, not at the rate that it probably should be, or it is getting increased, but still, I think this affects such a small number of teams. I don't get it. I'm sure there's somebody out there that can explain it better or understand it better, but and Jeff Passan did have a thread on Twitter that explained what the collective bargaining tax threshold is for, what it can do, but it still, after reading that, didn't make a lot of sense why the players are standing their flag in the pole or their flagpole on this issue. I still don't get it. To me, this whole CBA is about getting these younger players paid. That's what it should be about. That has been the big issue in baseball that players have complained about and griped about, rightfully so, for years now, is that you have players who are making the league minimum, and they're some of the best players in all of baseball. And it's all about being paid. And I think the owner's offer does that. Raising the minimum to 700,000 is pretty a big jump. Yes, it could probably be more 750, 800, be more in line with other leagues. Also, you're getting $30 million this bonus, this pre-arbitration bonus pool that wasn't there before. Again, higher, maybe 50, 60 million to start and go from there. So this deal, as the owner's latest offer, I think it's a solid deal for what I think should be the biggest issue for the CPA, and that's getting younger players paid. But I'm also a fan. I just want to see baseball happen. So I'm just like to accept any deal that is out there, but I understand the players wanting to fight sport and for players of the sport understand that that's the right, and they should do so if they feel like they're not getting a good deal. So moving on from that, our games getting canceled. So after the players rejected the league's final offer, Rob Manfred addressed the media. Now the first two series are canceled. That for the Braves, that's 4 games with the Marlins, also those 2 games with the Mets, completely out of here. And everything the owners have set up at this point is they're not going to make up those games, and players will not be paid for those games. And they will just pick up the schedule whenever a deal is made. They will just pick up the schedule where it is. So as things stand right now, opening day is now March the 7th for the Braves, where they'll be at home kicking off the series against the Reds. But unfortunately, next, I think both sides are leaving Florida, and as I said, there likely won't be a negotiating until at least Thursday. With that being the case, they got to get back to the table. They got to figure this out because more games are just getting canceled until the deal is done. And I've tried to be optimistic about this the entire time. Not be anymore with what I've witnessed the last couple of days and with how dug in the players are, right or wrong. Again, I'm not saying they're wrong for being standing their ground where they are, but with how dug in they are, the owners, they're not worried about missing a month worth of games. They're still going to make money, so they have the leverage there. I would not be surprised if they missed the month of April at this point. And that's a shame. It's a very sad day for the sport of baseball. It's a very sad day for the fans overall. We are the losers in this. Look, both sides in this deal, the owners and the players are going to make money. Players are going to get paid good money. The owners are going to make tons of money. The fans are the ones who lose here ultimately. You don't get to see stars like Ronald Jr. and Mike Trout and Fernando Tatis Jr. right now, and Freddie Freeman hopefully as an Atlanta Brave play right now, and that is sad. That is sad for the sport. It's sad for fans, and there's no other way around it right now other than to say that today was a very sad day for Major League Baseball. Next, we're going to move on from that. We're going to continue to cover and gear up for the season. We're going to continue our NA rankings, looking at the best relief pitching group in the division. Football might be over this season, but basketball is still for pro and college all the latest odds, total player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all of your sports betting news. BetOnline is the best spot for all your sports podcasts, and news in the season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino game. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. Like I said, we're going to continue our coverage of the Atlanta Braves here with a deal or a no deal. We're going to continue to prep for this 2022 season and hopefully it starts sooner rather than later. And we started our series ranking position group on Monday, looking at the starting pitching group. We continue those rankings today, looking at the heat, which includes the bullpen and female. So quickly just run down projected bullpens right now, according to Fangraphs for each give you my rankings. We'll start with the Atlanta Braves, who maybe finished with the best bullpen in all of baseball with what they did in the postseason. And that group is led by Will Smith, Tyler Matthews, Reed Jackson, and Steve Minter. Now Fangraphs also has Jason Webb, Dave Jackson, and Sean Newton out in the bullpen with Dylan Lee and Darren O'Day there as depth as well. Very deep bullpen, struggled at a lot of times in the regular season, but finally put together in the postseason and just lights out night shift as they call themselves as they team to obviously the Braves team with a very strong bullpen for 2022. That's protected bullpen with Edwin Diaz, Trevor May, Seth Lugo, and Miguel Castro as both top arms. The Blue to take the Johnny Perry and Trevor Williams projected as the rest of the arms in the bullpen. Really projected bullpen, Coach Abel, Jose Alvarado, Connor Brogdon, and Coonrod, and Dominguez. At the top, you have guys like Ryan Sheriff, Barry Foster, and Mitch Nelson, who's now in that quarter final bullpen spot.
Marlins have Dylan Toro, Anthony Linder, Anthony Bass, Richard Dwyer, and Okert as their top relievers. Jack Cobb, Lewis Smith, and Jordan Holloway also in the position to be in the bullpen. And finally, the Nationals make the bullpen. Kyle Finnegan, Andrew Machado, Tim Grant, and Will Harris, backed up by Patrick Murphy, Austin Ross, and Francisco Perez. So again, just like with the starting rotation with the O's, I think it's a very solid bullpen here. But if I had to rank them right now, I'd put the Braves number one. Look, you just saw what they did in the postseason. And Smith and Matthews and Jackson and Minter are on, and that's lights out at the end of the game. And that's what they proved in the postseason. Again, you never know. Bullpens are so finicky year to year. You never know which relievers going to show up and who's going to be effective year to year. But going into the season, you have to feel pretty strong with those four. Of course, I did the same thing going into 2021, and I felt very confident with those four at the back end of the bullpen. And it was a struggle for a lot of times coming in until they figure it out. But again, going into the season, I feel very confident with those guys. I like Jacob Webb, the guys who step up, Big Jackson as well. Dylan Lee, I think he'll be a big part of that bullpen. So I think there are some arms there for sure, some depth as well. So I think we have another very solid bullpen. Would not be surprised if they bring in a couple of veterans and on the field to try to fill out the rest of that bullpen. But at the top, matchup again, very strong. I think the Mets number two, Luke Hayes had some very good arms last year. The bounce back here for Edwin Diaz, Nose was really good. But Lugo, great as well. So they have some very strong arms in the back end too. I think the same for them. And they have to get better to fill that out. But they have a very solid 3 to 4 arms at the back end of the game for them as well. I got the Marlins at number three. And you look at their numbers from last year, and their bullpen was really good. Toro, Bender, Bass, Fire, and Okert, all really good numbers from last year. So I think they got some really strong arms from that Marlins bullpen. And then I got the Phillies at number four. I think they'll flip flop the Phillies and Marlins. I like the addition of Corey Knebel for the lockout, and that could be very solid for them. Alvarado is a big arm, big strikeout guy. Got Brogdon, solid, and Dominguez, solid relievers. Nothing necessarily special there, but it could be very solid for them. Alvarado, a big arm strikeout guy as well. Solid arms there. I don't know they necessarily have the closer. I'm have to try to figure that out right now. I don't think it's supposed to have to where it left to be done. But the Braves, that's all the Phillies, and the Nationals last year. Look, I was in the bullpen team. Nothing really scares me. Nothing sticks out to me. In the shadow, the rainy is that kind of been around for a while. That not good. Supposed to become a closer that hasn't really happened yet. So not a strong suit for the Nationals. I think that's a pretty rough year, and the bullpen is going to be part of that. So the bullpens are tough to rank. You never know what they're going to look like this year. They change so much throughout the season. But I do think the Braves have a very solid core. I think the Mets, Phillies, and Marlins as well. But I think the Braves at the top, I think they have to happen that postseason scrimmage. But let me know how you would rank them. How would you rank the bullpen as they stand right now in the game? Sticking with the bullpen conversation, next I want to talk about who is the future closer for the Atlanta Braves. And we have several great options, but who will emerge as the closer of the future? This time of year, I pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution. Like, so far, I almost feel like it's not really a resolution at all because I actually enjoy eating them. I haven't tried it tough. If you haven't, you need to go out and you can get bars, best case in bars. Plus, already first order place you must know. The company that must always, it's not just a protein bar, there is still some heavy real chocolate. In fact, all the bars are heavy in real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein, and protein bars are free. They are better and typically bars can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories, while most of the bars contain 250 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 7 grams of protein. And all taste delicious with flavors like mint brownie, coconut, almond, my favorite. Go to build.com, go to rock 15 for 50% off your order. Go to rock 15 at build.com for 15% off your order. This is also brought to you by Rock Auto, ever increasing number of makes and models. Now it's possible to relocate to another store to stock all the parts you need. I endure often all the orders the parts on their computer and their warehouse security. Yes, access to rockauto.com. Not that you can do that yourself. You can order from the company. Take time and money to Rock Auto and now you can get more than 100% more connections parts in 24 or new car dealership. Rock Auto was making every business serving do it yourself for over 2 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. And everything you can use to break parts, oil, and oil, and new car. Go to rockauto.com right now. All the parts available for your car or truck. And while you're there, please like Rock Auto, how to feel about a stock to make it amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts you follow every week. Go to rockauto.com. All right, so last I want to talk about future exposure positions for the Atlanta Braves. This is actually a question I get asked quite a bit, and it's more so in terms of 2022 of course all through play. Because I think it would take a lot for Will Smith to lose that job. Struggle to get another struggle in 2010, just kind of a year with the overall, and he didn't have that crazy spot. He showed in 2021 times as well. They still have these numbers. They're actually very solid, and Smith would never relinquish that crazy role from him. So I think it takes a lot to lose that job. However, if that was to happen, I think they will never get the first shot. Always year from overall. Also, on that, I think he will be on. He was over for the trade. The Wilson does have a good top 22. I can't see that being picked up. Even if Wilson still got an aggregate, still got, I think Wilson could fine solid for the Braves. I think Alex kind of regrets that deal, just the fact of putting that much money on the exposure. I think Will something else to isn't going to be I think it's kind of better for a reliever. Somebody who I think is probably a better fit as an guy and exposure. I believe the play best player very fine at that position. But a lot of times I can't see that option getting picked up. Cody Baker coming back into it, $6 million. Next year he hasn't started this one. He's coming back to a $6 million is a $5.7 million option for 2024. He was one of the best players in all of baseball before he got hurt. But he took a shot at it. And Tyler Matthews is a Meeker. We're under contract in 2024. And I think Meeker could be the next guy up. He always kind of had that over mentality, that said people look from the left side. So I think Meeker could be a shot if I had to pick somebody right now to take over for Will Smith and George. It would be Meeker. I understand those who would want Matthews, but I love the Golden Matthews. 7 to 8 based on part of an order for the other team. I love him in control, and that's what I would do. Some of the prospects, guys like Mr. Project and Peter Diaz, who could be the players, and Will Robinson could be a starter right now. Maybe young arms that could become closers. But since it's Strider, I am still on board with being a starter. I think that's where you can have the most impact. He's one of my favorite prospects right now. I had him overall in my top 4. If things happen to not work out for him as a starter, I think he's going to be a dominant player at some point. This is down the road. That's not really having anything to do with everything to do with starters. Like you do in your top rotation starter. But if that didn't work out, all back to next week, try out the program to be a really good one. William Woods is another prospect I think is my favorite. So time in a while. I think the Braves have several really solid teams that really closer position. And who knows what the closer role is really going to look like down the road. I'm not sure if they pretty old school. There's the during the seventh, on the net, but that strategy, involved in baseball, maybe it's not as useful, but regardless, it plays had a lot of really good back position arms that are coming up to help solidify the position going forward. I mean, it's certainly great because one thing we know about the Red Sox team starters are not going to that team. It's very important to start developing these lockdown relievers and Braves have some really good ones that are going to be good teams to that'll be it for this episode of a Locked On Braves. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Braves. The Braves, Ball.